All right, welcome to the first official episode of American Soccer Crash Course. I'm here, your host Lodge Dills, with my co-host Christian Lee, and casual first guest on the pod, Max Heath. Welcome, Max.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Excited to be the, resident casual of the podcast. So looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Max, you probably know a little bit more than you're probably like a high-level casual is what I would say.
I'd say.
But
maybe. At this point, we'll see. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how I can keep
football
it.
season's
Football
taking
season,
a lot of your time.
Taking up a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Either way, we're excited to have you. Max, you want to give your little soccer background? We did that last week. I think it's a pretty good one.
Yeah, so played soccer pretty much my entire life, and through high school, played club. Also played with Lodge on the same team, actually, and we were actually the two goalies for our high school team. So Lodge was the
Never
starter.
at the same time, yeah. But
Lodge was the starter. I was the backup. And fun fact, when I actually came in, Lodge refused to speak to me for the first 2 years of the competition amongst goalies. But
wow.
over time, won him over with my charm. We eventually became friends. But anyway, played soccer all throughout high school and everything. But definitely a more casual fan than these two. While they might get up at 6, 7 a.m. For all the Premier League games, I might wake up at 10, and if there's one still on, I'll watch, but not to the same extent. So, yeah, excited to be the resident casual on the pod.
Yeah, this summed it up pretty well there. That's something we're going to be doing, Max. I mean, I don't know what your schedule looks like, but would love to bring casual fans in and kind of keep Lodge and I in check as we try to navigate this crash course. So, Lodge, you want to kick it over to you to tell the people what we're going to be doing today?
Sure. So we had a whole episode planned. We were super excited about it. I was very excited about it. We had written the script. We had done everything. We had done all of our prep work. And then the game happened over the weekend against Japan, the Deuce in Dusseldorf, as I coined the term. But really, it caused us to kind of rethink our strategy here, come back to the drawing board, and come up with a little bit of a different episode. Going through the quick agenda of what we're going to be covering. First and foremost, definitely what happened with Japan. I alluded to it in an earlier video, but we're going to break down a little bit more about that game, what exactly went wrong, the position battle at Centerback, kind of what's going on back there, this solid defense back that we've got, and really talk about why that's causing so much contention with this team, why we were going to talk about the main man, the manager, Greg Berhalter, and his team selection, but this Centerback kind of issue came to the forefront, so we wanted to give that its due time.
Yeah, so like Lodge said, plans for an upbeat podcast, I would say, as we wrote it. We hadn't even considered what happens if Japan absolutely dunks on us for 90 minutes.
Nope.
So I think it's worth having a discussion about what might be holding this team back in a specific position and kind of a philosophy on the whole. So kind of funny, as I put it on our socials, my Japanese friend Kenta he's a 5th grade teacher, and the game was at 8, 9 a.m., right? And so he had his whole class watch the game on the projector, and if Japan won, it was no homework for the kids. They were going crazy, had a good video of it. So respect to them. But Kenta did tell me that Japanese TV was describing the U.S. as a powerhouse, which
First
is
time ever?
which is funny. And I inaccurate, definitely inaccurate, but also a reflection of the talent and a reflection of why we're here doing this podcast, because there is some serious talent out there, but it doesn't look like it's being put to use. So U.S. played a 4-3-3 formation with 5 starters out, unfortunately. But Max, why don't you tell us what 4-3-3 is?
Sure, yeah. So 4-3-3, I guess in today's day and age, is really probably the most popular formation. Definitely more of an attacking formation with 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, and then 3 attacking players. I would say what comes to mind with the 4-3-3 is I think of those Barcelona teams with Messi, because it's really a formation that's suited for teams that have really talented wing players that can take guys on with the ball and get guys in wide attacking areas. So think with those Barcelona teams, you got Messi and Neymar, obviously the most skilled players on the field. So it's really a formation geared towards them where they can get the ball and go one-on-one at people. In terms of the U.S., it's also a good formation for teams that like to press, because when you have the ball, even when you have the ball, those fullbacks will push up the field and join the attack, which is also good, I guess, for the U.S. with players like Dest. But it's really overall a formation geared towards teams that like to attack and that like to press.
Awesome.
And so, and with the U.S., with players like Pulisic and Weah, guys like that out wide, I think it's probably a good fit formation-wise. So,
Very well said. That's why he's a top-tier casual.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had thought about that one for a couple minutes. So I was a little prepared,
So setup was, beautiful, I guess. But our players were pretty individually awful across the board. I mean, just like doing basics, it just wasn't happening. It was one of those days. But
let's not sugarcoat it here. Yeah, pretty bad.
it was terrible. I mean, we couldn't come on here and do a podcast about how happy we are. Like it was really bad. It's on our minds. But I would say Japan really forced those mistakes. They were excellent in their organization and their tactics. It was honest. Like if you go back and watch some of the game, like just their scheme was pretty incredible. And their scheme centered around a couple select players, but one of them who definitely is a lightning rod for the USA is defender Aaron Long. So Lodge, you want to tell us about him?
Aaron Long. You want to go through the quick bio of the entire man, or what do you think?
Yeah. Let's get a bio on the guy.
All right. New York Red Bull. So plays out of the MLS. 29-year-olds from Southern California. Drafted in the second round out of, I forget what college. Do you remember by chance?
Riverside, I believe.
Okay.
Like a smaller school down there in Southern Cal.
So about 2014. So definitely had some time in the MLS to develop. Really, I mean, he struggled out of the gates when he came into, I believe it was the USSL, so the division below the MLS, so kind of like the Farmers League, kind of developing up. Not great. Had some time, developed some skills. As people progress, he definitely got a little bit better, had his chance, and definitely took it when it came to the MLS. Similar to our other center back, definitely something you'll hear about Walker Zimmerman as well. Really about guys taking opportunities whenever get the opportunity, to take them. When it came to the national team, I think a couple guys were hurt when he came in specifically, and he just kind of showed out. He was one of those guys that really just ran with the chance that Greg gave him, I want to say. He was a all-star in the MLS, was playing very well, I believe, for the national team as well, and then he ruptured his Achilles, COVID year, I want to say 2020, 2021. Missed the next 21 USA matches, where we actually started to go on our best run over the last 8 years, winning 2 North American titles, playing in a couple big tournaments, starting to build up the buzz that we've been talking about definitely in this podcast. So he's been out for a lot of that time. Another thing, I would say during that time, he started to get called back up to those as he rehabilitated that Achilles, definitely wanted to come back and show out strong, but really wasn't with the team performing as they were performing, and so he's a little bit of an odd man out at this area, but Greg gave him a chance, and unfortunately he was not able to take it.
Yeah, I would say he despite all those kind of trends that suggested, there were more talented guys in place, he actually was still around. Like he was still hanging around. So when he had that, he ruptured that Achilles in May of 2021 and missed the things. He was still invited to camp, which made some fans kind of angry because, players who weren't hurt were trying their best to not get invited to just hang out. He has this really bad rat tail mullet that infuriates people along with what's going on in the field. I think that's just amplifies. Like if it was good, maybe people would like it. But it's just bad. And it's a bad mullet, to be fair. But he's just walked right back in after being hurt for a while. And he's getting really important starts for the U.S. So it's kind of sketching fans out, just on paper, before we even get to the actual game and what he did in the game. But it's like an example of playing favorites for the Greg Berhalter, the coach, and that's not something that's like foreign to a national team. England has the same thing going on with their captain. Actually, he's really struggled, Harry Maguire. But these coaches kind of feel like, hey, maybe that player's situation at his club team is different than what I can do. It's kind of like a belief that they can provide a different environment. And we see that happening a lot. I think the biggest example is France with Paul Pogba. Every time he plays for France, he's excellent. So
Yeah, and I mean also just within the U.S. men's national team, Christian Pulisic has not been playing for Chelsea that often. Let's be sure about that. You know, the main guy, we got him right here. Thank you, Christian, for the jersey. But he has not been playing for Chelsea, but he still comes in, week out, Captain America. And when he's in the national team, he's one of those guys that just excels in that role.
One thing I would like to add as a casual fan that's not obviously up to date on all these players, the one thing for me that's just an easy analysis is he in the MLS or is he playing in Europe? I think most fans, casual fans, and even fans like you instantly are biased against MLS guys.
Yeah.
It's similar to like if like the USA basketball is playing, right, and we're playing like Greece, and we're like, all right, they have 3 NBA players, and the rest of the guys aren't in the NBA. It's like, all right, those guys are irrelevant. The only guys that have a chance of actually being relatively good are these 3 guys that actually play in the NBA. It's kind of like that with me with the MLS. The MLS is just not at the same level of these European guys. So even if some of these guys that are playing in Europe are younger, less experienced, like I'm completely biased to like, all right, screw the MLS guy. Let's get the kids playing in Europe because it's just a different tier.
Max, that's been me for a long time, and I've tried to have an open mind, right? Because in some cases, in some cases, like kids are working their way through the system, and they're just not there yet to make the jump. Mm-hmm. When you see a veteran, that is a bit of a red flag. And then when that guy is actually not playing well in the MLS, that should be like the biggest red flag of all time, right? And so that's actually the case with Aaron Long. Mm-hmm. So his strengths, I would say, over the course of his career, he's managed to be a good MLS player. But I don't think he's good enough to play at an elite level. I think that's the view held by lots of people. So Lodge, again, I think our viewers would be interested to know what the heck happened against Japan, the monstrosity. So you want to break down tactically in dummy terms with Max playing good defense if you get too sophisticated.
Sure.
What happened tactically?
Yep. So quick highlight for the actual game highlights, if you want an explanation of that. That is on TikTok as well as Instagram. I want to call that out, make sure that we're calling out all the socials we have. But tactically, what went wrong was really just centered around the way that Greg Berhalter plays. You can't fault the guy for having a system because he has one, sticks to it, and will die by it. He probably will end up dying by it at some point, but right now we're just going to talk about what that system is. So,
and if he surprises us, by the way, that's cool. Well,
cool.
We have no agenda.
Yeah,
It may just not be working.
It may just not be working right now. So the way that he plays is he loves to build out of the back, which I'm a big fan of personally. And what that means, building out of the back, is your center backs play to your outside wing backs or play to really just your central midfielders. From there, the midfielders or the wing backs distribute the ball up the field. And then from there, instead of playing a long ball all the way over the top, you're really kind of orchestrating where everybody's getting a touch, everybody's getting the flow of the game. And it's really just more of a pretty system as opposed to kind of hoofing it long and running and letting the fast guys run up top. So that was what they tried to do, definitely. One thing that we did not do was successfully play out of the back.
Can I ask you about playing out the back? Like, I would just add, it's kind of like a simple way to think about it is if the other team doesn't have the ball, they can't score, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, if you keep the ball on the ground and keep it within your team, then the other team does not get the ball. That's kind of like the basic philosophy, too, right? That's like
sure. Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And also just like as opposed to, I guess, the other extreme would be like just playing long ball. Like instead of, building out of the back would be, a lot of short passes to build up the field. Like, think like Barcelona, a lot of like small passing as opposed to like probably what you would consider more of like how Americans have really always played is just kind of like a boot it long to a fast guy, not really care as much about possession. So yeah, I think this style is probably like new for the U.S. really.
Yep, for sure.
We were grip ball players for the longest time. We were hoof it long, let the big boys go up and make a play. Mm-hmm. But Greg's changed that philosophy, and that's one thing we love about him. Love him or hate him, he's going to stick by that. Mm-hmm. Aaron Long was not good playing out of the back, and that was one thing that Japan did incredibly well was capitalize on our mistakes. So the way that they played really was they waited for us to get the ball out of the back. They waited for our center backs to get the ball. At the point that the center back would really pass the ball to either the midfielders or kind of the wing backs, they would immediately attack. It was called what we call a high press, where they kind of just swarm whoever is getting the ball as they're coming in, and so they don't have a moment's time to think. When those passes going to those guys aren't sharp, when they aren't directly on their foot, they don't have enough time to react. Aaron Long did not do very well making those passes, and so we had a tough game.
Kind of like, I guess, a good explained in NBA terms. would be like you're relying on your center to like distribute the ball through a full court press, and that's like your game plan. Like a guy who's not good at passing, putting him under pressure and telling him to do the work.
Right. Another way to think about it definitely is in NFL, setting up the run-pass offense. So you can be a team who passes 4 times down the field, passes 7, 8 times down the field. If you keep on doing the same thing, the defense is probably going to adjust, and you're probably going to have a more difficult time doing it. If you're passing terribly and you continue to pass over and over again, it's probably going to get picked off once or twice, which is what happened in the U.S. game. We just could not build it out of the back. We couldn't play from our central defenders. We weren't setting up the run well in that kind of metaphor, and we got buried for it. I would say I don't think we had a shot on goal.
No shots on goal because we couldn't
even get it out of the back.
It was literally like running all 3 downs kind of thing. Like we were like truly trying to play out the back the whole time. They were doing a great job swarming us. They made their goal off of swarming us. And then like it's simple. If you're trying one strategy and it's never working, you're never going to get shots on goal. Like it was really that bad and that simple. So we're gonna take a break from all the negativity here. We're gonna utilize our casual fan Max here to go through some high level casual fan to break down some rapid fire vocab terms for us. That's gonna be, this is an academic podcast, so vocab is important. So Max, what is a formation?
Yeah, formation. I mean, I would probably the easiest comparison would be think football when teams run, a 4-3 defense versus a 3-4, something like that. It's pretty much similar to that. It's basically where players align themselves on the field. So we talked about the 4-3-3, which would be 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 attackers. It's really just where teams kind of position themselves on the field, and I think in soccer especially, it's sort of a fluid thing. So it's not like you have a 4-3-3 and you're stuck in that position the whole time. If you have the ball on a certain part of the field, it might look completely different than a 4-3-3. It's sort of just like the base, alignment, going into a game. That's how I would describe it.
Nice. And what is a center back? Since we're talking about center back, Aaron Long.
Center backs, obviously the 2 main defensive players on your team. Generally, in most formations, you're going to have 2 center backs, right in the middle. Traditionally, center backs are bigger, stronger, so they could win balls in the air, kind of body guys off the ball. But on the other side of that, they're usually probably slower, not as Lodge mentioned, not as good with their feet, so might not have the ability to make super quick passes and obviously do foot skills and things like that. Not going to have that sort of ability, but really just big, strong guys that can body people, take the ball off you.
But some might be better than others with feet passing,
but
which could
not
be valuable.
Not the American ones though. Is the problem. So
there might be something there though. There might be something there. What is a tackle?
Yeah, a tackle is basically just when you kind of get the ball taken off you. When an attacker makes a challenge on you and is able to win the ball, whether it be obviously people are familiar with the slide tackle, but it also is really just going in, getting stuck in, as they say, and taking the ball off a player with the ball. It's not the sort of American football definition of tackle, which you would think of just a very physical, getting taken down sort of thing. Although depending on the type of soccer tackle that can maybe be involved, but it's really just kind of a phrase for taking the ball off someone.
Nice. Aerial duel?
Yeah, aerial duel is when there's a ball played in the air and 2 players are going up for it to try to head it away or head it in the goal or things like that. I think concussions, people going up, putting their heads together, trying to win the ball. Corner kicks are probably an area where aerial duels are going to happen, where the ball's kind of getting played into the center of the box and guys are going up for it with their head. I was not a fan of heading the ball, so I tried to avoid aerial duels at all costs, except unless I could use my hands.
That's why we
normally
were goalies.
could.
Which I could.
That's why we were goalies. Yep. What about marking?
Yeah, marking. Similar concept to think pickup basketball, and you're kind of manning up when you walk onto a pickup basketball court. You're all right, who do you got? I got him. Marking is basically kind of a man-to-man style of defense. When you say, all right, I got him, and you're sort of defending him.
I'm going to give you a doozy here. Offside trap.
Offside trap, yeah. So the offside trap is sort of a technique. So obviously people are somewhat familiar with the offsides rule, where you can't play a ball to an offensive player that's behind the back line. An offside trap is a strategy where the back line moves up as to force an offensive player to be offsides, so that like they move up as a pass might be happening, and so that ball that was played, that's now offside because it's kind of a risky strategy, but yeah, it's basically just the back line moving up to cause someone to be offsides.
And going into the next one, what do we call that when the defense is playing up?
Yeah, so a high line.
High
yeah,
line.
yeah. So a high line, what we've sort of talked about the U.S. team employing is when you sort of play your back line higher up the field, sort of goes along with sort of the Americans' like very high pressure pressing strategy. The defense, the back line is pushing up as well as to create kind of put the other team under pressure more, be able to win the ball, force them to make mistakes. But on the other hand, you kind of leave yourself susceptible to a long ball, right? Because if you're playing your back line higher up the field, that leaves the opportunity for an offensive player to make a run and for the other team to play a counterattack ball right in behind and get in. So it's a high risk strategy, sort of like I guess press coverage in the NFL, right?
Okay.
If you're playing all your corners really really tight man coverage, that could leave you susceptible if someone gets by and there's no high safety or something like that. But yeah.
Question for you guys too, because I actually don't totally know the answer to this. Like when you play a high line, is part of the idea like you're squishing the lines together so like the passes are shorter? Is that part of it? Like offensively?
Offensively, it's really just to, as you're talking about, when you're playing a high line, kind of be compact. Additionally, it makes it much easier if you lose the ball to immediately, as we talked about, the Japan team did very well, high press. So immediately you have 3-4 guys in the area, they're able to swarm, win the ball back quickly, and you can go back to playing those short passes, kind of build something up a lot quicker than just kind of dropping back and waiting for the team to make a mistake.
Cool, that makes sense. So Aaron Long allegedly is good at the high line. That's why he's in.
Allegedly.
And there's a couple players who are out because they're bad at the high line. We're going to talk about that. So this leads to today's big question, is system versus players. A national team, you can only get U.S. players or players like U.S. players. So should you be fitting their style or the other way around? So we're going to talk about that in a minute. So Lodge, over to you with today's big thing, the big concept. We're going to be doing this every episode, really introducing you to that starter, this time Aaron Long, and then what our big thing to know about the U.S. is.
So today's big thing is really talking about the commitment to the system that Greg Berhalter has employed for the longest time with this team, which is playing out of that high line as we're talking about, building from the back, and really using his guys. I think there's a big point of contention that we're going to be really highlighting here, which is there might be guys that we think are better fit to this position, be better fit to play for the U.S. Nationals team, but they just aren't getting the opportunity because of favoritism, as we'd like to call it. So we've talked enough negativity about Aaron Long, so I guess we can leave him alone for a little bit.
And it's also like not, other than the haircut, not really all about him personally as much as just like frustrations as a fan. That happens across the board in different sports.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's nothing personal. It's just we need something to bicker about in that game.
Aaron, if you're out there, nothing personal.
Nothing
all right,
personal.
you know what? I like the mullet. Okay, I don't care what these guys say. I like it.
We do think you should leave the MLS and get a new challenge.
Yeah,
maybe think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we've talked enough about what Aaron did wrong. But let's talk about a couple guys that we think might be a little bit better of a fit.
Sorry, Lodge. I know I'm killing you here. It is a position battle. That's valid. I think it's more like a shock that this guy's still in it, as opposed to like, oh, he's definitely the guy. But we got to talk about him. All right, I'm done interrupting you. Sorry.
Thank you. But one thing I wanted to highlight, our main man, Christian, the guy that we talked about last week, both in our starting 11s, wasn't in the team, didn't feature in the team. Chris Richards. So Chris Richards is, for those of you that don't know, he plays for Crystal Palace, I believe, right now. He has experience playing overseas in the Bundesliga, the German league, as well as the English Premier League. So he has those big game. He has a little bit of big game experience. Relatively young, definitely untested. I would say in the national team, we'd love to say that he's come in and he's played great in big games, which he has in one or two, but he doesn't have that wealth of experience that definitely Greg's feeling a little bit more comfortable with Aaron Long here. Another thing to highlight, he's definitely injury prone. I would say he's had one or two relatively big injuries that have kept him out of playing in the national team, playing in a couple of those big games. So that's maybe why he's not getting the nod initially, but definitely something to look forward to. Number 2, and I think, Max, you remember this guy probably when you were keeping up with soccer, John Brooks. John Brooks, who does he play for now? Anybody know?
He just signed. He was a free agent, just signed with Portuguese club Benfica.
Okay. John Brooks was one of the biggest proponents of playing overseas for those teams that were 8 years ago, a decade ago, for this national team. He was one of those guys that went over. He played very well, I believe, for Wolfsburg out of Germany as well.
He's actually a dual national, so he like grew up in Germany but had an American father too. So
little known fact. But yeah, John Brooks was one of the guys, I believe, in the 2014 World Cup. He scored that electric header to beat, who was it? Ghana. We beat Ghana 2-1. I remember going crazy. Wasn't old enough to drink, but definitely the parents around me were going pretty wild for that game. So that's one that I personally won't forget. I don't know about you, Max. Christian, I don't think you were a fan yet.
no, I was watching that one.
Okay. But let's see. 216 games played overseas. Poor start in the Greg Berhalter era, and I think that's definitely one of the reasons that he's not in this national team right now. A little bit of a riff between, I would say, what would be, if he were making the national team, the most senior player. But because of, really, as we talked about, Greg going with his guys, kind of old guard out, new guard in, he didn't end up making the team or making the squad. Still hope out that he could possibly be, a last minute roster choice, but not looking great.
Doesn't look good.
Not looking great. Lastly, let's see, Tim Ream.
Oh, sorry, Lodge. Why wasn't he in this? What's the stated reason that our man is not in? I'll tell you.
Please.
He allegedly can't play a high line, despite his wealth of experience and clear CV as like what should be a starter on our team. So.
Yeah, and that's a question I have, as a casual fan, is like, in my mind, I know John Brooks, and I think most fans would perceive him to be probably a higher quality center back than almost all of the center backs that we have available. So I know he's a little bit on the slower side, which might not make him kind of the right prototype to play a high line. But in my mind, like, is that totally like rule him out of playing this style? Like, I still think, being a higher quality, say he is a higher quality player, he still might have better positional awareness. Like, is it all just a matter of like speed? Like, I feel like he's still, even if he's a little slow, like, I feel like you can still play him in the system if he knows the system. Right? Wrong?
Great question.
Aaron Long's not that speedy.
Aaron Long's not that fast. Yeah, I was about to say. You want to play the high line. You want to pick your guys. You want to go with your tactics. There are many ways to mask a slow center back. Let's just get that out there. Number one, you play a faster center back with him. Not to say that Walker Zimmerman isn't, top speed. I think he's pretty fast when it comes to center backs, at least for our team. But John Brooks definitely could be masked in this team. He is a little bit slow, definitely not going to lie there. I think it cost us maybe one game in the early stages of the Greg Berhalter era, and ever since, he just had a poor run of form, I want to say, for in the Bundesliga with Wolfsburg. I think that really was one of the deciding factors as to why he hasn't come back into the team. One thing to highlight, I didn't realize that he played at Benfica, but one thing I know about Benfica is they play a high line.
That's why I went there, because he's trying to get back.
Yeah, so if you know a guy that's dedicated to the team, I mean, he literally transferred club teams to play in a high line, to play in the system that Greg wants. Still not giving him a nod, still not giving him an opportunity. It's a point of contention. I'm not going to say it's a good choice or a bad choice, but definitely something to be looking out for here.
He scored a goal in the World Cup. I don't know how neutral we can be about this whole thing. But,
Yeah, I feel like it could happen. I mean, I remember playing FIFA with a guy named Per Mertesacker who had 37 pace.
Yeah.
And he was like Arsenal's starting center back for a long time. So, like, God, if you can play, Per Mertesacker at Arsenal, I think he could play John Brooks in the U.S. team.
It's a fair point.
Just my casual take.
Just your casual take.
Just going to preface everything with that.
All right. Well, last but not least, in the center backs that could play instead of Aaron Long. Not that we want them to play instead of Aaron Long because we're still pro on Aaron Long train. Tim Ream.
Long on Aaron Long.
Long on Aaron Long. We're longing Aaron Long. Tim Ream. Another guy who definitely has some experience playing overseas. I think he's the 34-year-old captain for Fulham side. For Fulham. Fulham, for those of you who don't know, is right now a top 6 team in the English Premier League, widely touted as one of the best in the world, if not the best.
The league, not Fulham, but the league.
The league, not Fulham. Let's be clear about that. Had a great stretch of games so far this season. I think they're only 10 in before this international break, but he has definitely gone out and shown that he can still play with the best of them. Just another kind of question to bring into that center back controversy is why don't we have another? I believe he's another one with the man bun. Why don't we have a 2-man bun center back pairing with him and Walker Zimmerman?
That's what I was going to say. Is if he still has the man bun, which I don't know if he does. I don't want him.
Oh, he does. Oh, you don't want him.
No, no.
Like,
You don't?
I'm anti-man bun. On
You're
Tim
anti-man
Ream.
bun?
I'm not anti-man bun overall. I'm anti-man bun on Tim Ream.
Okay.
I don't want my center back having a man
seems
bun.
mean.
I think we're going to have at least one center back with a man bun and Walker Zimmerman.
It's virtually lock.
Yeah, it's a lock.
well-
I don't think we can do anything about that.
Okay. All right.
It's important that you don't stay bitter about it because I think it will happen at this point.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just some old-fashioned,
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know.
I like my center backs bald, like John Brooks,
Right.
I like a bald man. You can just head the ball, You're not going to have to worry about that hair flowing in his face, coming out of the bun, anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the real issue here.
Yeah. But one thing to definitely note about Tim Ream is, like John Brooks before he went to Benfica, he does not play a high line either. That's probably the main contributing factor as to why a lot of these guys have been called up and why a lot of them haven't, is the commitment to the system by Greg Berhalter. That's definitely something that we're going to be talking about consistently over the course of this podcast is the man will live and die by his principles.
And is it the right move for this really talented group of players? Tim Ream is very slow, to be fair. He's breaking out, but we all know he is a slow man. So
Yeah, breaking out at 34. So
he actually is. He's surprisingly. So yeah, this Japan game, it really wasn't the first time we've seen something like this. I think Berhalter can turn around, but that conflict, system versus basing your system around the players, is very real. So, what do you guys think heading into this game against Saudi Arabia tomorrow? What would you like to see?
I think it's it's either a can't win or a can't lose or a must win. Okay. I think that's one thing I'm going to keep on saying.
Adding a tie in there, it makes that a
Yeah.
confusing statement.
So I think it's a must win.
Okay.
Saudi Arabia, I don't believe they're in the World Cup. I don't think they played well enough.
They are, but they're bottom of the barrel.
Okay, I stand corrected. So this is a World Cup caliber team that we're playing. I think Japan was as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're starting to play teams, and we're getting that kind of experience with teams that we should beat. These are games where we're going to go into Wales, and it's probably going to be a similar kind of we have a feeling about us that we should be beating Wales.
Based on talent.
Definitely based on talent. And can we come out and can we perform and can we beat these teams that we're definitely going to have a little bit of a struggle doing, but we need to do in order to excel in the World Cup, to get out of our group, to possibly make it into the knockout rounds, and prove the country wrong over the last 8 years. So,
Yeah, I'm feeling something good tomorrow.
Yeah, I think probably the main thing I'd want to see is some good striker play. I think we've talked about that's probably the weakness of this U.S. team. So I think obviously seeing a lot of chances and, seeing – I think is Pepe starting? Did I hear that?
Yes. Ricardo Pepe will start at striker.
He's probably I don't know about you guys, but he's probably my favorite option for the position, I think. So I think if I would like to see a good performance out of him, hopefully a goal. But, yeah. I probably won't watch it, but I'll tune into all the commentary after.
Casual to the end.
What time is it at?
Committed casual, not rising up to die hard. So that game is at gotta get my Central and Eastern. It's at 2 p.m. Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Check that out if you can. If not, welcome to Wrexham. The pilot has a great first episode on what we're going to talk about in our next episode. So like a little homework for the next one if you're feeling that stuff. But yeah, thanks for joining us on the American Soccer Crash Course today. Great to have Max here and get the real bulk of the episodes going. So
Thanks for having me, guys.
yeah, absolutely. So see you guys. Go USA.
Yep.
I believe that we will win.
We're gonna have to get these sign offs a little bit better
Yeah, we
eventually.
are going to have to do a